are back with another episode of the Lead Up Podcast. I am super excited because I have one of my good friends. This is actually family, I think I could say. I've known this person for about 10 years. Go back to the college days at UC Davis. This is my sister, Miss Kendy now. Well, not now, but Kendy Braga. I used to know her as Kendy Kate Tuazan.
Oh, you said
Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for being on here.
You're welcome.
You are the official first female guest on the podcast. So
super honored.
It just kind of made sense, especially with the previous episode. I was like, oh, Kendy should be on this.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I want to just kind of start off with the basics. Just where you from, a little bit about your background, whatever you feel like sharing. This is just a conversation. Yeah.
So, I'm Kendy. I'm almost 30. I don't need to mention exactly how close. And I was actually born in the Philippines. Moved here when I was 5-ish. And had a pretty interesting childhood. I remember I know I was really young, but before moving to America, I remember like trying to be as American as I possibly could before I got here. And so my grandma would teach me like English, but she would say things like in a really bad accent, so I refused to listen. So when I got here, we had to take like standardized tests and English testing to see if we placed like normal classes or if we needed to take ESL. So both my brother and I, we placed like 5 grades above.
Above.
No, below.
Sorry. You said, all right, go ahead. So above.
5
That's
grades
good for
above
you guys. Yeah.
our
Shout
actual age. Just the Philippines, like, I don't know, you're like 5 years old already, doing addition, subtraction, and multiplication. So, grew up in Salinas and then went to school at UC Davis. I met you when you were a freshman.
Yeah.
So crazy. 10 years.
Yeah.
And now I currently work at Webconnex. It's a local software company. Something I would have never seen myself doing. I was working with kids in like social work settings, mental health for about 6 years before I started working at Webconnex. But definitely the best surprise ever in my turn of career. So.
Right. And I definitely want to talk about that because, again, something that you were not, that wasn't even the direction, right? You were a sociology major, right? I believe.
Yeah.
You still have that one class. I think you still got to
You can edit
right.
that out.
Don't worry. That's another story for another podcast. But anyway, so sociology, right? Working with kids. That's where you actually met Lewis, right?
Yeah.
Your husband. But then you went to this completely different field of software. So Webconnex, right? So bring it back to Webconnex. Tell me about that because they've been getting a lot of recognition lately. I think for some time, but even more so of like it's one of the best places to work. The leadership, which I definitely want to get into, talk about that culture that you guys have there because you guys are really doing some awesome things there that I don't think get highlighted as much. And I'm very interested, just even meeting your coworker Hannah, and just the people you have. It's evident. It's super strong, and it shows even too from the leadership. So I want to hear a little bit more about how that all got into place of how you even got into there, and then what happened when you got in.
Yeah. So total huge shift, right, from the social work setting to software, and then what do you do with not degree, but like what do you do with all the years that you spent in school? And so I felt like I kept hitting a wall, and I didn't understand what maybe compassion and passion really meant, and the difference between the two. I went on a missions trip in college that you went to, fell in love with these orphan kids in Mexico, and just the first opportunity out of college was working in a group home. And so my heart was totally captivated towards kids, especially kids that didn't have homes or just didn't, have parents. in good families that love them and that they can go to. So I think after 6 years of being in the field and like finding myself really not just physically tired when I get home, and like you can deal with that, you can sleep, whatever, but it was the mental fatigue that I kept running into. And part of it, the social work field, they they're so huge because you are providing mental health services to people. They're so huge on mental health for yourself and taking rest days, all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, I do that, and I felt like I was maintaining myself and I had a healthy life on the inside, but I'm like, this is draining. But there still wasn't even this like fulfillment. And so, yeah, I was already married at this point, and I just was thinking about what a family would look like in the future. And, obviously we were starting to think about kids, and I couldn't picture myself coming home and with the same, fatigue, same frustrations, and then coming home and giving my all to a child. I'm like, I don't know, that just doesn't seem congruent to me. Like, maybe other people can do that, but this is me, this is my life. I get to decide what I want to do with it. And so when I just previously mentioned learning the difference between compassion and passion, I realized I just had compassion towards these kids. I have compassion of people who need help. Yeah. But is it necessarily my passion? Does it give me life? Like, does it drive me towards something? Yeah. And the answer was no, and I felt a lot of guilt because I'm like, this should be something that this is a good thing. This is a good cause. You're helping people. But yeah, I kind of just realized, well, it's my dang life. Like, I don't have to please anybody else, and show others that like I'm a good person, that I care about people, and I will die to myself in my career. Yeah, it just wasn't for me. Yeah. And so I feel like so many people can relate in being in a place where they know this isn't their ultimate goal, but they kind of just have to quote unquote hang in there, especially until someone calls them back or another good opportunity comes along the way. And within the span of 6 years, I think I had jumped around like 4 or 5 different jobs. And so I was like, I just don't want to jump to another job until I just didn't want to get into the same cycle, right? But I knew nothing else, and I mean, I actually was applying to similar things, but it was like all I knew. And most places require a certain amount of experience, and so I really couldn't give something else a shot without going way back to entry level something, or going further in school and just sucking it up and just working a whatever job. And so my brother-in-law, who's one of my mentors, Damien Giacchino as well, he always says that I think that opportunities come in relationships. They can come from wherever, but when you open yourself up to, I don't even want to call it networking, because I feel like that's just solely trying to make connections, right? But like true relationships where people get to know you, get to know your interests, and then they come across something and you pop up in their mind and they're like, huh. Right. And so I'm not even sure if Damien knew I was, looking for another job, maybe, but he's connected to the co-founder of Webconnex, who I work for now, and then a good friend of Eric. So Eric Knopf is one of the co-founders. So they just got to talking about, we're hiring, they like to hire, especially at that time, they really truly only hired people they had personal references from. And so Damien threw my name out there. I was encouraged to like send my resume and just send an email, and it was like 10 at night, and I was like, this is really unprofessional, this is awkward, I'm not sending no email at 10 at night. Well, I did get a response like well, not pretty early next morning at like 6 a.m. or something like that, and I'm like, I have no idea what this place is. So Webconnex, in short, provides software for people who want to host events, donations, nonprofits, stuff like that. And it sounds cool, but had zero background in it, but it just felt right. I had nothing to lose, right? So I did get a call back. I get an email back, and the whole process just was like so fast.
Yeah.
Until I get there, I'm called in for what I thought was an interview, but it was such a casual conversation between myself and our CEO, Ashley. And then she had brought another team member. Just, she wasn't like on leadership or staff or anything like that. Just somebody that was in the same position that I was wanting to, get. And I thought that was interesting. It was almost like a peer sort of interview. They didn't ask me hardly any questions about like, what would you do? Like scenario type questions that you do in interviews to just gauge like the skill set of the person. They just asked me about me. They asked me, what I was into, what I used to do before, what I do outside with my time. And I can tell these people were like socially intelligent, emotionally intelligent. Like they didn't need to ask, they didn't need to read my resume to get a good gauge of who I was. And then
interesting.
Ashley asked me, so if we hired you, would you be happy here? I'm like, what? Of course the answer is like, yeah, sure.
Right.
You want to tell the person that's hiring you the answer that they want to hear.
Yeah.
But I've never been asked such a candid question.
Right.
And so she said, would you be happy here? Because it seems like, for the last 6 years, you've been working with kids. And obviously you have to have some sort of love for them and passion for them.
Right.
To have done that. Would you miss that part of your life? And I don't know, whatever it was, I usually overthink all my answers, and it takes me a while. I'll be quiet, like, But there was just a certain piece about just my answer, and I was super confident, and I just said, no, I won't miss it.
Yeah.
I believe that because I did a little bit of soul searching during this time, I was able to come to the conclusion and tell her, no, I won't miss it. I realize that I have a love for kids, but I can always do that on my free time, right? I could serve kids, I could at my church or volunteer somewhere else. But I just love that she asked that question.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I think I was in a place where I didn't have to go begging for a job. Someone was over here asking me, would you like it here? I'm like, you care about what I think? Yeah. And that just set the tone right for me. When I started, there were probably like maybe 10 employees physically in the office. Super small, kind of startup-ish. And I felt like I was part of the company at a time where they were still building the stepping stones to what maybe people see on the outside now, which is like a super fun culture. We do cool stuff. Like we do go on annual trips.
Yes, you do.
Out of the country. Yeah. The whole goal of that is to bring your family alongside. That this is they truly care about our family. So we're able to bring our spouses, our children. Went to Costa Rica. One year we did go to Tahoe. Went to Belize.
Wow.
The next year is also going to be in some sort of like tropical setting.
Yeah, right.
But it was really awesome to be part of the company when it was smaller than it is now, and seeing how, awesome culture doesn't happen overnight, and awesome culture doesn't mean perfection either. It's just really a bunch of vulnerable people who admit they don't always know what they're doing, but strive to get there together. Yeah. And what that looks like practically is, so we actually have something we call Lunch and Learn every week. We have our usual meetings that are like technical and all that stuff. But once a week we set aside time to go over, someone will come in and teach, whether it's someone from Webconnex or an outside person, to teach an actual sort of leadership or personal development thing that has almost nothing to do with the software, but everything to do with, growing as a person. Yeah. Healthy people equals a healthy workplace, whether that's software, whether that's mental health, whether that's education. Yeah. And so topics such as like vulnerability. Right now we're all reading a book called Dare to Lead by Brene Brown together. Like literally all of us. Really? You know what I mean? Like what I've never been in a company where it's like, one, there's a sign reading like it's cool, but two, that people actually want to do it. Yeah. Because we're seeing the benefits of like, you know, if you take the risk to grow and be vulnerable in a certain way, like, shoot, like, it doesn't just benefit your work. It benefits your home life. It benefits your friendships, your relationships. So, yeah, we take time once a week to all grow and learn together from a particular, like, sort of personal development topic. Yeah. You know, when this company was a little smaller, we did a lot of things, like, if I had conflict, you know, whether it was, like, on a bigger personal level or just a smaller level, we would go on walks together. And so we didn't have like this super formal management like tier just yet, and now we have more of a formal sort of structure. But when we were smaller, you know, if I had an issue with somebody, we would just go on a walk around the block a few times. We would hash it out. We'd come back and we'd grow from it. Like, we didn't have the luxury of like HR. Let's just sit down and in fact, I think things like HR or like labels and titles of boss or manager, sometimes that, I don't know, it could be sort of a crutch and a vulnerability,
I agree. Yeah.
Which is super interesting. Like, we don't have traditional titles at work. Not that we're scared of it, but it's like, okay, we've noticed that the more, you know, if I were to be like called a specific something and I was, you know, boss or manager, like, people would be a little hesitant to come to me openly. So anyway, that's all to say that we really encourage, you know, when it comes to personal conflict, like going directly to the person. And it's a skill. Like, we let each other know, we allow each other to fumble, like to trip, like, meaning, I've worked throughout the years to be comfortable with confrontation. It's not necessarily natural for me, but I know the value of it and the importance of it, so I don't back down from it. It might take me a while to get up the courage to talk to, you know, my coworker or even, you know, leadership about something that I might see differently, or I need to be honest about, like, hey, that kind of hurt my feelings or whatever. But yeah, knowing the outcome is so much more important than whatever my fear is. And so it takes just like one or two people to really be courageous and do that in the company, and it kind of just has this ripple effect of people wanting to do things well, or people wanting to be honoring to one another. I think that's actually what has led us to help sustain and build the culture that we have now. Yeah.
From your time being there, what have been some of like the biggest learning lessons for you as like, not only as like a young leader in the company, right? Starting from when there was only 10 to I don't know how many there are now, but you know, even where you want to see yourself, like kind of establishing more of like your own leadership style, or where you see yourself in the next few years. What are you taking from when you first started to now, and to eventually where you potentially want to go?
Yeah, I think it started with one of the first main feedback I got from leadership was not undermining myself. So I think it started, if I can see myself as a future leader, I had to really first look at like my insecurities and all these things like that are getting in the way for me to really win, right?
That's big.
So the first feedback that I really truly got from leadership in Webconnex was to not undermine myself, to trust that I have something to say. I still struggle with it a little bit now. If I know I have something important to say, like I have physical indicators along with obviously like I just, you know, using my brain, but physical indicators, like, you know, my heart's racing, like I just know I have this thing to say and I know it's valuable and it's important. But then when it comes out of my mouth, I have all these like sort of qualifiers to soften the blow. So if it sucks, like people, you know, won't think it was stupid. Like they're like, oh, okay. So really have worked on that, and also trying on different shoes of leaders that I look up to. yeah, I mean, you don't really know your leadership style until you just try things, right?
True.
You try things, you learn things, you read, you know.
Yeah.
But the actual walking it out.
What would you say your leadership style is? If you could say maybe in a few words or just from what you've noticed about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'll say it used to be more like if you see me in person, I'm little. Little people and insecure people sometimes overcompensate. So what it used to be was being a little more aggressive and firm because that's not naturally me. So I used to try to overcompensate so people would listen to me.
Yeah.
What it looks like now and what I hope to continue to grow in. And mainly because that's not telling you where I've come from. Mm-hmm. What it looks like now is allowing other people to shine. Being that person behind the pack or being that person that's getting the rebound or giving the assist, you know. And that's actually huge for me because it would cause a lot of like insecurity if I wasn't seen. Like being seen and heard was like my biggest insecurity. Yeah. I wouldn't do things because of fear of looking stupid or not being seen or seen as smart, intelligent, valuable, important. So now I think my leadership style is to allow other people to shine because personally that's such a huge win for me. Yeah. Because that used to be hard. Yeah. Also, I think allowing like leading people to see their potential. Yeah. I love I feel like I have a lot of awareness in social intelligence, emotional intelligence in that way where I can see even from afar someone's potential in specific areas. And so I really find joy in helping that person get there. And if they're not ready, being aware that sometimes, there's probably certain skills, like basic skills to help them get there to even see it. Right. Because that's where I was at. Yeah. Like I couldn't see, where I truly shine because I had all these insecurities. Yeah. So I love helping people find what they're good at. Yeah. What do you think's been like one of the more challenging things? I know obviously, right, as you know, and you mentioned already that there's things that you still want to grow. What has been something even recently where you struggled or challenged, as a leader to maybe a comfort place or, something that you just weren't aware about, but it's been brought to your attention? That makes sense? Yeah. Yeah. The most recent discovery, I think, for me, is so we've got some new hires at work, and be careful now. No, I know, right? So we have some new hires at work, and one person in particular, kept asking me questions, basically for help for things, and I was like, why do I feel a certain way when this person's asking me questions? And so we actually had a space in one of our team meetings where I was able to express, I felt a certain way. And I think... In that setting? Yeah. With everybody? This is, totally normal. Really? Yeah. So we have... we break up into a few different teams. Got it. Product-wise. And in our meetings, we don't necessarily discuss, housekeeping things. We discuss, well, currently we're going through the book, so it's natural to have we're bringing up topics such as I can't find the word for it, but basically sort of triggers that cause us to have forms of armor to truly be ourselves, particularly at work. And so I was just sharing it felt like when I was when this person was asking me questions, and I actually told her who this person. When we were in the circle, that I felt like I had a hard time with it because I felt like I had to know the answer. And I didn't like that because I don't always have the answer. Gotcha. And it just caused me to act a little bit outside of myself. And I sat with it for a little bit, and I'm like, that is actually not even really true. I didn't dig quite far enough. What it truly was, and I actually looped back with her, a week later. and actually told her, like, I processed it a little more, and I want to tell you the truth of where it's actually coming from, is this person, sometimes she gets really passionate about the question, and so she isn't just trying to find the solution. She actually really wants to understand why. But I realized her asking more why questions, like, felt like I was being challenged. Like, not just my knowledge base, but, like, my credibility. And that was a hard pill to swallow, because I'm like, shouldn't you be over that by now, Kendy? Like, you know, you've done all this work on being, like, on your insecurity. Yeah. And you being more of the veteran in this position now, why would you feel that? You know, why would you go back in this place of insecurity? So I beat myself up a little bit about it, but it was kind of a cool discovery, to be honest, to realize, oh, I still have stuff to work on, you know? And then it was also really cool for my relationship with this person because, gosh, just the release and the honesty. And one, I have to be proud of myself for getting to the root of that, right? Because that's not always easy. Right. And then two, just like, it actually freed the other person to say, like, you know, I got that feedback recently from somebody else at work. And this person was able to say, like, I think I understand where that's coming from. And, like, her previous place of work, that, like, she was the only girl in a company of men. So she had to be aggressive to get her answers, right? Yeah. And it was just so awesome. Like, it was such a good lesson to learn, like, man, I still have, you know, vulnerabilities that if, like, I need to tackle them. Because when it causes growth, like, it allows me to grow. And look, it allowed someone else to you know, it was a growing moment for somebody else too. So that's definitely, I mean, I'm probably going to continue to find things. I think that's what effective leaders do. They continue to continually take inventory of themselves. Nice. And we always should. Yeah. So.
I like how you brought that up. Because that's basically my next follow-up question is, I know you mentioned guys like Damien, right, in your own leadership. What are some other qualities that you look for now in a leader? You know, whether you go, you know, not to say you're moving from here to Webconnex or something else, but just like wherever you go, what are some of the things that you look for? Like, man, this leader should have bam, bam, and bam.
Yeah. On a closer, intimate level, you know, people that I've sat down with and gotten to actually have personal conversations with, or, you know, on a mentor level, I think it's an awesome trait for a leader to have, to know how to guide people to their own answers. That takes a lot of humility, and that takes a lot of restraint, I think, as a leader, to hold back, because you see somebody on the other end that, you know, you're wanting to help, or wants your help, and for the most part, if you've got some wisdom and you can tell them straight up, this is what you need to do, but that's not very effective most of the time, and it's not received well for some people who are in particular spots in their life. And so I really admire that quality about somebody. I can remember my college mentor, Renee. She was so good at that. Yeah. And it also empowers you when you realize, like, I kind of got there, obviously with some help. And it builds confidence in you. So I really admire that trait about a leader. I also admire leaders who don't hide their failures. I think it's natural to look up to somebody because of their successes, but when they let you in on their failures, I think there's so much gold in that. And we see highlights of people, and that's not bad at all. But when there's a chance for a leader to really share their failures and the really vulnerable parts, I feel like we learn so much more from that.
Definitely. I mean, that's a perfect example of, like, you know, Damien. I think, in my opinion, when I first met him, he was always upfront about his past, which he has a lot of experiences, right? But he always coupled, like, how he overcame those challenges, and it's, like, still proven to this day, right? He goes back to, like, who he used to be, or how he used to be, or how he acted, but always talks about that process and how he developed into who he is today, and how he holds to those things to remain, and still grow, and that's powerful for me. I'm like, wow, I can believe this guy, I can trust this guy, because he's basically telling me all his laundry, but he's showing me that he's overcome that, and he's not only maintaining, but like really going beyond. Like, this guy keeps growing. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so that's definitely true. And even now, right? You are outside of work. I mean, you're a mama now, right? So I know it's only been a few months, but what have you learned on that journey as just being a new mom?
Yeah. And a lot of it really does tie into like being a good leader and
that's
leadership.
why I asked, because it does.
Yeah. I'll try to summarize it. During my maternity leave, being at home, and I'm sort of a doer. I like achieving, but I'm also all for just like kicking back and watching Netflix and doing nothing.
I think a lot of people are. Nice.
Yeah.
Some more than others, but yeah.
But I had this like itch.
Yeah.
Of like, and I actually had a to-do list while I was going to be on a maternity, and I only had 2 months, right? I wanted to like reorganize my closet, color coordinate it, like do all kinds of crazy stuff that I don't know I don't know what I was thinking, like I was going to have time to do that. Well, it hurt a little bit to realize like, oh, I can't do any of that. My life right now truly is dedicated to this child who needs to eat every hour and a half. And I also had this goal to get the baby to sleep through the night as soon as possible. So I was like kind of rigid on putting him on a schedule. And P.S. it worked. But what I learned, because I beat myself up, like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't even like clean the kitchen, like, or I can't even do the laundry. Like I'm so tired, and it was really hard at first. And then I realized, like, what am I doing? Like, when you don't understand the season you're in, you're gonna be so frustrated.
Whoo! Say that again.
I was trying to accomplish things that were so not right for me to even try to accomplish at that time. Damn. I'm over here with a new human being. That should have been my focus. And it took me, a few weeks to like accept it, but I got there and I realized, oh, well, shoot, like, this is what I'm supposed to do right now. So, sorry, the laundry can wait. We'll just eat out.
That's huge.
And so that was a big lesson.
Right.
Learning to, one, recognize and then accept exactly where you're at and then succeed in that.
That's really big. I think that's going to help. I mean, that just helped me, but I know a lot of people, because, I mean, that's just what you were just talking about, right? A season of, like, you thought being in a certain field, right? Because maybe that's what you majored in, or just that's your experience or your passion, quote unquote. But then now you're in a new season, right? New season, new industry, new field, new culture.
Yeah.
Right? That's awesome. As we kind of wrap up, I want to hear just kind of some dreams or goals that you have for yourself, like the next few years. Because I know you've done a lot of things, from, I know you as a singer, photography, doing makeup, a bunch of other stuff, which you still kind of do. But I'm curious now, again, with where you're at and where you're going, I'd just love to hear, just like, where do you see yourself in the next few years?
Yeah. So all the things that you mentioned, those are fun stuff.
Yeah.
That keeps me healthy and that keeps me creative outside of a lot of the bigger things that I do. Particularly in Webconnex, I think it's really awesome that we've gotten bigger, but we're still in a space where we kind of get to create our own path. Nice. And so currently, I feel like I'm sort of in the starting steps of helping grow a particular department.
Awesome.
And so my focus at work solely is to understand the need for that and help provide, the tools to really not just make this a department and a thing for the sake of me having a certain position, but because I actually see the value in the company.
Yeah.
And then personally, as a leader within Webconnex, and for anyone who is in Webconnex that is listening, I tend to be that person that like will go on walks with people and like resolve things, talk about things at work that it's still that counseling side of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to continue to pour into myself and be that resource for people, whether that's work or personally, or I mean, you and I both, right, are working together in this, for Dalte.
Shout out to Dalte.
Yeah, it's a upcoming nonprofit that
right.
focuses on healthy relationships for young adults. So even within that, like, I'm in all these sort of starting positions in my life, both at work and then outside of work, that I think everything that we just talked about, from understanding your season, succeeding where you're at right now, I really want to conquer. I really want to do well in being humble and understanding. I'm in the starting point of a lot of places. That's motherhood. That's my position at work. That's, my position at Dalte.
Yeah.
Like, and I just want to be as humble as possible and learn. And also, they might not sound like they belong in the same sentence, but I want to be, be humble and also be, what's the word? I suppose courageous in pursuing things that I have no idea I'm doing. Like, you and I are working, with Dalte and helping you develop a particular part of the organization. I have no idea what I'm doing.
You're doing a great job so far, though.
But, like, knowing that I don't, but taking the risks anyway, and then being open to people's feedback, I think I really just want to focus on that now to develop me into whatever these roles are going to end up looking for me. Because I don't necessarily want to focus on the end result.
Right.
Who the heck? I don't know what it's going to look like.
Right.
I can say I want it to look like this. But right now, I really I'm setting out to conquer one step at a time.
Yeah.
And so wherever that leads me as a leader in my career and, in my outside pursuits, I'm just going to let it do its thing.
That's awesome. Thank you again for being on the show, or the podcast, I should say. Excited for all those different things. Still working together, doing life. Thank you again so much. I've gotten so much from this conversation. And that's it for the Lead Up podcast. See you guys next time.